2 years ago, when I was a sophomore in high school, I had started dating someone. I was around 15 to 16 years old through the entirety of this relationship. His name was Grayson. Our relationship was very explosive and toxic, but that's not what this story is primarily about. You see, Grayson's dad always gave me the creeps. I believe in a way he was a pathological liar. Here's some background. His name is Tim. Tim is really full of himself. He believes he's established his own businesses, thinks he's come up with innovative war tactics the government is using thanks to him. I also have reason to believe that he was dishonorably discharged from the military. Grayson always told me that he left the Air Force to come home and be with his wife. He doesn't have his uniform. He doesn't have any paperwork regarding this. However, leaving because your wife misses you isn't a valid excuse in the military. At first, it seemed innocent, such as giving me and my mom his cell phone number in case we ever needed to be in touch. Grayson was always bad about ignoring texts from his dad in school, so I'd find him and tell him that his dad was waiting outside for him, but it kinda got weird. He would go out of his way to text me and my mom for non-Grayson related matters. He would often invite me over when Grayson wasn't over to do things such as Grayson's laundry, or to bake cookies, or to even wait until he gets home to surprise him. My mom never let me, nor did I really want to go because I just knew this was weird. Anytime Grayson and I were on the phone, his dad would start saying really mean things to him, yelling at him, calling him stupid, etc. It always made me uncomfortable because I'd come around and his dad would act very differently. Every time Grayson and I were together, he had started treating us like we were on playdates, like we were children. He would often remark about me being a stepdaughter to strangers, and this man could really talk. He would talk to anyone and everyone regardless if they seemed up to conversation or not, which made it really awkward for us because Grayson would have his arm wrapped around me and we'd be affectionate, and him saying that would just make things really awkward for us. I remember trying to tell Grayson several times that his dad just really freaked me out, and that my parents weren't happy about his dad either. He didn't really understand. He told me that he had lost his daughter at birth and that maybe him acting this way was kind of his way of coping with it. Grayson's dad, Tim, had recently gotten close with a neighbor at the apartment complex. She also had a daughter. Kelly was 6, maybe even 7 years old. Her mom was a complete deadbeat. She would only come around Tim whenever she needed money to get cigarettes or drugs, but she did not hesitate to let Kelly spend several hours alone with Tim, or letting Tim pick her up from school. I remember one specific time that he brought Kelly along to pick Grayson up from my house. It was cold outside. He sent her to my door wearing PJs. We had been watching a scary movie, and when she saw Grayson, she then excitedly said, "Tim is taking me to see Moana." It was 11 p.m. It was really late and I was extremely bewildered. Kelly eventually got taken away from her mother and she was placed in a foster home. Tim would try to get me or Grayson to go to the door and leave stuff for her to have from Tim. Then he eventually even tried to get custody of her, regardless that there was no blood relation or any credentials that would allow him to do so. Another time around the Super Bowl, he had come up to the door with a beer bottle in hand. He doesn't even ask to come in. He just kind of forces open the door and then comes in the bathroom to pee. He then takes Grayson, beer bottle in hand, and drives home. Here's a list of other things that I remember happening, but it's been over a few years, so there's more, but I can't recall every detail. One time Tim texted my mom and inquired about me and Grayson. We had been arguing, and we had argued a lot. His dad then jokingly asks my mom, "Is she on her period?" I get it, it's a crude joke and that many guys joke about it, but imagine someone texting you and asking on your daughter's behalf. Another time, Grayson and I were giggling and making jokes in the back seat. I remember his dad always talking about me and Grayson getting married. I was a sophomore, he was a freshman, so we thought about it, yeah, but was it ideally gonna happen? Not really. Grayson then says something along the lines of, "Getting married? I don't think so." His dad then says, "Well, if you don't marry her, then I will." I was honestly shocked that something like that would even be said. I was at that point very weirded out. He had asked me to go out to Golden Corral with him and Grayson. I knew Grayson was at his mom's house, but for some reason I thought he had already came home and was with his dad. I got into his dad's car. I was just in the car with him and 2 other older men. I started furiously texting Grayson. I asked him where he was and if he was actually going. He was asleep. He didn't even know his dad had come and got me. His mom was totally pissed. She chewed his dad out on the phone while it was on the car speaker, and I was sitting behind his seat. She said that he needed to stop with this weird behavior. We go inside the restaurant and I'm quiet. I'm just waiting for Grayson to text me back. I'm upset and confused. He finally comes in. He was mortified. I wanted so badly to go home, but I didn't want to make a scene by leaving, so I just tolerated it. Our last and final argument ensued. It was because Grayson started sexting other girls. Grayson made it very clear that he did not permit me to talk to other boys. I unadded every boy on social media, so this really distraught me after everything that our relationship went through. There were other signs that I ignored too, about how he'd surround himself with girls whenever I wasn't around, and how he'd touch on other girls in gym class. But this was the final and last time that I wanted to be walked all over. I snitched on him to his dad. I didn't explicitly say that Grayson had sexted girls. I didn't want him to be in any legal trouble. But I did ask him to delete my number, and I told him that I wouldn't be coming around anymore. His dad told me that I was being unreasonable, and that his son was a gentleman, and that he raised his son well enough that his son would never cheat. It was a lot more drama than I needed. So at the end of it all, I blocked him on everything. Tim started trying to reach out to me through his Facebook account, through his business account. I often just blocked him and didn't tell my mom because I felt like it was old news. A few months ago, I reached out to Grayson. Grayson had taken my virginity. I was really embarrassed to tell him that I had an STI and that he needed to be checked. A week or 2 later, I got a letter in the mail. His dad, Tim, decided to reach out to me. Keep in mind, me and Grayson had only talked about the STI stuff, nothing more. We had been apart for 2 years. I still lived at the same address. I suppose he had told his dad that he needed to get testing done, and that his dad took it upon himself to discipline me, now 18 years old. I'll retype a few of the things he said on this card. The front of the card says, "Which first, pout or cry?" with a little girl in pigtails on the front pouting. Opening the card, it originally just says, "Miss you," and then written all over the card, "You're too smart for irresponsible behavior. Respect yourself. Respect your body. Reach for the stars. Achieve your goals. Get your education. Don't blow it now. Hang on, baby girl. If you need me, just call me. If you need a ride or just someone to talk to, your friend Tim. Picture your future. Achieve your dreams. Hey dear, respect yourself. Don't throw yourself at boys. If a guy truly loves you, he'll hold on to you. There's so many diseases out there. Some are incurable. Reserve sex for marriage and do right by God. Don't become a baby mama. You're very smart, pretty, nice, and sincere. Don't let this world change you." I wasn't the one to even open the card. My mom was, as she had recognized the name. She called the cops and had them investigate it further. Even the cops remarked that this behavior was strange and should be looked into. I don't really know all of the details. I was working when all of this went down. We still have the card in my mom's nightstand as evidence just in case this were to go any further. His older brother Tyler works at a bar-type restaurant we frequent a lot. He and I don't really make small talk. We act like we don't know each other. But by the way he looks at me, I can tell in a way that he feels sorry. I truly empathize with him because he too has had a long-term girlfriend, and I can only imagine his dad doing the same thing to them. It's gotten so bad that one of his older sons who has his first grandbabies is moving away just to get away from him. His wife doesn't like Tim, and even he can see through the man that his dad proclaims to be. I apologize if this is all scattered and doesn't really add up. It's been a while and I haven't really typed it all out, nor really talked to anyone about this other than my immediate family. I have other reasons to believe that maybe Tim isn't mentally sound, and he uses religion to back up his reasoning for many things that he does wrong in his life. I think maybe the reason why our relationship failed was because Grayson's dad mistreated him, and going to his mom's house was an escape from that. I think that is truly why Grayson treated me how he did, and it really breaks my heart for him. But I am glad that I'm well out of that relationship, well out of having to deal with his dad, and in a brand new relationship with a family that adores me. While this isn't extreme, I really hope that I'll never be involved with Tim or affiliate with any of the members of his family again. Update. I've had some questions regarding the whole STI thing, so to clear things up, I'll say it here. I did have a sex life after Grayson without being in any other relationships. I didn't have my first appointment until a while after. My STI was asymptomatic, so therefore I didn't realize anything was wrong. I don't know if Grayson gave it to me or what. I don't know how long I had it afterwards. I don't know when I got it. I just know I had it. My OBGYN asked me to notify anyone I was involved with, and everyone who I was with were told, going back to Grayson as he was the first guy I'd ever been with. I'm gonna start this with some context so this makes a little more sense. So the place where I live is like a mini New York City. Our crime rate is actually higher than New York City, if that doesn't tell you anything. There are crackheads, gang members, and just all around people that you don't want to encounter, especially at night. The story happened when I was 18, and I had a friend that I'd known for years that stupidly was in a gang because of his family's past. This is going to be important later. I was hanging out with said friend, which I'll call Alex due to privacy on their behalf. We lived in a city where the biggest things we had around us were food chains, so there was really never much to do. We decided that we were going to walk around a little bit and then eventually go to one of our main hangout spots to go smoke a little and just generally hang out. It was about 2:45 a.m. when we were starting to walk, so by the time we got closer to our spot we were trying to reach, the church bell in our town rang to signify that it was 3 a.m. Alex and I were joking about how creepy it was and wondering why it would go off at such a late hour. I had a soda with me that I just opened before we left, so I chugged it and just held on to it since we didn't have any trash cans near us. Fast forward a little bit and we were finally reaching our hangout spot. Now, the spot was the corner of a parking lot, but it was up on a hill, so the edges were stone walls so no one would fall off. The drop was about a story high. We noticed an abandoned baby carriage as we were walking to the corner. I ended up getting freaked out and was jumpy out of nowhere. I acted like something big was dropped behind us, causing me to snap my whole body around, which really freaked out my friend and made him look too. Mind you, there wasn't any noise or vibration from anything falling. Nothing had actually fallen, I had just randomly felt like it had happened. That's when we spotted someone walking around in the parking lot. I immediately knew something was wrong, but my friend was just trying to get me to walk over to the corner so they wouldn't notice us. As soon as we made it to the corner, they started rushing towards us. I don't know why neither of us decided to just walk away at that point, but looking back at it, we were already trapped in a bad situation as soon as they saw us. As soon as the guy reached us, he had started asking us, "Did you guys leave all this trash here?" Talking about the baby carriage and various other things that were around it. Both Alex and I were confused but just denied it, saying we just got here and we had no clue where any of it came from. The guy didn't believe us and kinda was eyeing us up and down. That's when we noticed he was in layers and layers of clothing, like 2 different pairs of pants with shorts over the top, and a long sleeve shirt with multiple other short sleeve shirts over the top of it. He also had a backpack and different clothes draped over his arm. But it wasn't cold outside since it was July. That's when he mentioned the trash again. "Are you guys sure this wasn't you?" Pointing at the carriage. Again, we denied being any part of it. That's when he let it go. We just stood in silence for a couple of seconds, then he started again. "What are you guys doing out here? Are you smoking some weed?" he asked us with a grin. We said no, we don't do any drugs at all. He gave a suspicious look and then just asked us why we were there. Alex spoke up and told him that we were just there to look at the stars and hang out for a little bit. This is where it got even weirder. The guy had started talking about how he has his own fashion line and that he was a well-known guy, telling us how lucky we were to even be able to look at him. That's when he started showing off the little silver chains that he had on his neck and wrist. We could obviously tell that he wasn't all there and was on something. So to not piss him off, we said that we've seen some of his stuff online and that it was really cool to meet him. He lit up. He started talking about how he had some exclusive stuff coming out soon and that he was going to give us early access to it. That's when he lifted up the clothes that were in his hand. It was this big oversized pair of shorts that were from the dollar store. This dude just started shoving them towards us saying, "Here, smell it. It's my new cologne that I just made." He put it in Alex's face. My friend just stared at him down while leaning towards the shorts, pretending to sniff them. The guy then shoved them towards me and I got a full face of lemon scent like cleaner. I just kind of smiled and said that it smelled nice while silently freaking out, thinking I was just drugged and had chloroform in my face. "Here, you guys have this. It's on the house," he said with a smile as he handed them to me. I didn't know what to do, so I just held them up and glanced over them with a smile, saying thank you as I draped them over my arm. That's when he asked how old we were. "I'm 17, I said, not wanting him to know that I was no longer a minor in our state. That's when Alex's demeanor changed and he just stood there glaring at the man without a word. The man laughed a little bit at it, then started talking about this random book, telling us how it's God's word and how this book opened his eyes and changed his life. He opened the book and started showing my friend different pages in the book. At this point, my friend wasn't saying a single word or moving, just watching him. So not to send the guy any red flags, I just kind of nodded along, trying to be nice and calm as my anxiety was steadily rising. He handed my friend the book and told him to keep it and to let it change his life. That's when he then stepped back for a second to adjust his pants. He then started pointing around us, saying that he had connections and people watching us at that moment. I could barely hold my act as he was saying all this. Alex grabbed his phone out, showing the time that it was 3:30 a.m. Alex then finally spoke. "I'm sorry, but we gotta go, man. My mom is texting me that we need to get home." His parents were asleep and had no clue we were out. The guy just kind of stared at him, a bit freaked out, then asked him, "Your mama's calling you?" And Alex just replied that she texted him telling him to get home now, that she was looking for us. The guy just kind of nodded and said he would see us later then. As we were walking away, he stopped us and said that he almost forgot to give us one last gift. He pulled out one of those capsules that you get from the quarter machines in the grocery store. And it was 3 big versions of those tiny colored bone candies. He handed the capsule to me and said it was a gift from the blog party. In my city, we have something called a blog party where the main streets of the town are blocked off so the city can throw a little rave with music and vendors all around, which had just happened a day or 2 prior. I just smiled and said thank you. Then Alex and I started walking the opposite way. The street we took to get up there was on our left, but we didn't want to lead him back to one of our houses, so we took a little side street that would lead us to the main road, but he would still be able to see us until we were able to turn the corner at the end of it. As we started walking that way and the guy was walking back to the middle of the parking lot where he originally was, Alex leaned towards me and then said in a whisper, "Don't freak out, but he has a gun." I immediately felt my heart drop and the anxiety settle into my chest. Alex just kept repeating, "He has a gun. Don't freak out. I'll get you out of here. You're with me. I got you. He has a freaking gun, dude." I quickly asked, "Where are we going?" "Straight. Just keep going straight," Alex said. So we quickly kept walking straight. And once we popped out at the end of the side road, we just kept walking straight so we didn't know which direction we were going. We didn't turn around, the whole time in fear that he was following us or watching us. Alex then whispered, "As soon as I tell you, we're going to run, okay?" I just replied with, "Can we get rid of this?" talking about the crap that he had handed us. Alex just said, "Not yet. He'll find it on the ground and try and find us." As soon as we were out of sight, he said to run, so we started booking it down the street. I kept telling him that we needed to get out of his line of sight because if we kept running the way we were, he'd be able to see us from far away because the road we were headed towards had a clearing, letting you see all the way back to the parking lot. We ended up running through an alleyway onto another street, but my friend kept almost leading us towards the clearing again, so I pushed him towards another alleyway to try and get away from that guy's line of sight. We were by a parking garage that had paid access when Alex and I finally slowed down for a few seconds. "Here, walk through the garage. If anything happens, it'll be on camera." I just asked again, "When are we gonna get rid of this crap?" "In a minute," he replied. "I'll let you know when to drop it, but as soon as we do, we need to run." He started looking around, checking to see if the man was following us, as we were then fast walking through the parking lot. Once we got to the exit of the garage, he looked around outside and then quickly said, "All right, drop and run." We both threw the things down outside of the exit and started running. When I dropped the things that I had in my hand, I had also dropped the empty can, which made a ting noise when it hit the ground, causing us to bolt, scared that he had heard it. As we were running, I kept throwing up the soda that I had chugged in front of me, but I never stopped. Alex tried stopping me for a second to check on me, but I kept pushing him forward, saying that we needed to get the hell out of here. Once we finally reached near our houses, he told me to come back with him because he didn't think it was a good idea of leaving me alone at my house, since it was just me and one other person who lived at my house. We didn't stop running until we got inside his house. We just sat there in silence for a bit. Alex then finally broke his silence. "Do you know anything he was talking about?" he asked. "Other than the fact that he said he had people watching us, no." Alex shook his head and then replied with, "I do. He was trying to recruit us in his gang. He was trying to teach us old Italian mafia terms. That was what he was showing me in the book. He mentioned a couple of big drug lords that I don't even want to talk about. That's why he handed you the capsule and told you where his people were, so we drop it off to them to do a drug deal. He's the one who put the baby stroller there. It's an old trick to make people go and check to make sure there isn't a baby in it so he could trap us, especially with it being at the corner of a drop." I just didn't know what to say. All I could think was how I felt in danger the second we made it to the top of the hill. "How did you know he had a gun?" I asked. When he stepped back to adjust his pants, he grabbed onto it to move it. I saw it shining in the light. After that, I didn't really want to walk outside in fear that I'd run into him again. The next day, me and my other friend had to go to the store, and the garage that we had thrown all the stuff outside of just so happened to be on the way to the store. When we drove by, I noticed that everything was missing. I just hoped that the owners of the building just threw it all away. I haven't been back to that spot to this day, and I kid you not, every time I see a baby carriage, I just avoid it like the plague. I also get freaked out every time I hear that same church bell ring, making me think it's a warning that something bad's about to happen. I found out a year later that my now boyfriend was a security guard at the block party that same year. His team ended up actually kicking that guy out of the party because he was harassing people and selling drugs to local crackheads at the event. So, to anyone who ever finds a stroller abandoned or just has an uneasy feeling, leave the area immediately. Be safe out there, everyone. When I was in middle school, I was a petite and an attractive lady with curves with daddy issues. So I signed up for some hookup dating apps to meet with random local guys. Dangerous and illegal, I know, but I was a stupid middle schooler who was having untreated mental issues. There was this one guy I matched up with that I'll call Tyler. I was meeting up with Tyler in the dead of night so he could drive me to his place so he could hook up. The reason why I was so late at night around 3 in the morning was because I had to sneak out, and over time I had memorized my parents' sleeping patterns since they didn't have an exact schedule. Anyways, I was sneaking out through the front door, and I had to wait for Tyler to drive to the location I sent him to the park and then wait for me. To walk there, you just have to cross the townhomes I live in at the time to a local elderly's home that where I live is known as a place to meet up as friends or couples. As I was walking across, there was an area which I had to go through to get to the elderly's home, and it was dark as hell. There's a sidewalk gap between apartments so people could walk their dogs and stuff, which looks totally normal in the morning, but terrifying at night. I was walking up to the stairs that lead into this section of the sidewalk, and I had a dreading feeling that someone was watching me. I froze in my tracks with my heart racing before I decided to continue walking forward since Tyler was picking me up soon, and a silhouette of a tall, big dark figure emerged from the shadows and then approached me. Some of the light of the surrounding porch lights had lit up his features. It was a man who was about 5'11" to 6 foot tall, and he was a big Hispanic guy with some facial hair who looked to be above the age of 20, who just kind of looked like he wasn't all there. He walked a bit closer, and I was too stunned to walk away as he then began to speak with slurred speech. "Hey, are you looking for Chloe's house?" I then responded with a confused no. "Are you Chloe?" I said no, and then I asked who she was. He proceeded to tell me that she was having a house party, and he's waiting for everyone to leave so they can have some alone time or something like that. It was really hard to tell since he was obviously on something at the moment. He then asked for my name, and of course, as the dumbass I was, I told him my actual name. He said that it was Pretty, and then he told me to hold up before he turned on his phone flashlight, then saying, "Damn, you're fine as hell." I quickly shot him down and told him that I was only 14, and he didn't seem to believe me. At some point in the conversation, he kept suggesting that we should hang out, but at this point I was just trying to escape, but every time I tried, he kept blocking the way out. He had asked me some questions and almost asked for my number, but I decided to sort of cut him off before telling him that I really had to go because someone was waiting for me. I didn't know if Tyler was there yet or not, but it made a good excuse before I bolted the hell out of there and kindly worded it before I left and then started to sprint to the other side of the street. He wasn't there yet though, so I waited a bit longer on the sidewalk. Another stranger who I assumed was from the same party was walking by and asked if I was alright. We made some small talk, which made me feel better. Just then, I finally saw Tyler's car. He arrived. Nothing else creepy happened that night, thank God, and he didn't live in my town. He was just there for the house party, or at least I hope. I know that he asked me some other weird and creepy things, but I'm having a hard time remembering since it's late at night. But this experience really scared the hell out of me since I was obviously a minor, and also just approaching a woman at night and blocking their access out. Who does that? I wonder what could have happened if I didn't tell him that someone was waiting for me, or if he wasn't waiting for some chick who he drove an entire town over to bang at 4 in the morning. Please be careful and don't do what I did at all. The story happened slightly over 20 years ago when I was 16. During this time, I lived with my mom and stepdad in a remote area 70 miles west of Las Vegas, Nevada. I'd gone out to visit with my friends, being allowed to drive myself for the first time ever. I had a lovely time watching a movie and getting food together until it was time for me to head home. The curfew I was given was 10 p.m., with the caveat that if I was running late for any reason to find a payphone and call. The night wrapped around me in my old 71 Chevy pickup, as there were no streetlights or houses for most of the way home. As I pulled up to the first of 2 stop signs, I could see an older sedan. Old cars are still pretty common in that area. The car was stopped with its hazards on. I pulled up behind it and waited as a man in his 30s to 40s started walking towards me from the driver's side. Even at this point, I didn't have any alarm bells going off in my head yet. Being in the middle of the Mojave Desert, providing assistance to stranded people was common. People rapidly get into severe problems there by not having enough water when a vehicle breaks down, or not realizing that it's a freaking desert and people die wandering delirious away from the highway trying to find help. Anyhow, I rolled down my window as he came up to my door, and I could smell the liquor on him. I could see another man in the passenger seat. This was before anyone I knew had cell phones, and the nearest payphone was a good 10 minutes drive ahead. I didn't have a way to call the cops on a drunk driver immediately. The man then explained that his car stalled and he asked if I could help them out. I asked if his car was a stick shift, which it was. So I asked if he was familiar with push starting it. He said yes. So I agreed to, as gently as I could, push their car with my truck while they turned the engine over. For anyone that isn't familiar, this is a way to start a manual car that's having battery or starter issues, specifically to get it somewhere to work on it. I knew that my truck would be fine, and I didn't feel like it would be wise to get out and try and push their car physically. Push starting their car worked without a hitch, but here's where things go south. They get back out and thank me, then invite me to hang out and have some fun with them. I decline. They pull off to the side of the road and I continue on my way, only they start following me. So here I am. It's 9:50 and I'm running late because I stopped to help them. Admittedly, I hadn't given myself much leeway for leaving my friends. These drunk, creepy older guys have started to follow me on the road without any man-made light except for car headlights, and I'm at least 10 minutes away from a payphone. I think to myself, maybe I'm being paranoid. So I turn down a road that I know gave me a couple of turnoffs to either head back to town or loop around the gas station with a payphone. The car follows behind me. I'm thinking, damn. I take another turn that only leaves a couple of houses at the end of the road, and they turn behind me. I take another turn to loop around back to the gas station, and they follow me again. So at least I know they're following me and not just heading home. At this point, my heart is pounding. I decided to try something to lose them. I pull off to the side of the road, and I see them pull up behind me. I wait as the driver gets out of the car and begins to walk towards me. His companion also gets out and starts walking towards me. I wait until they almost get to my tailgate, then floor it. My wheels dig into the rocks and poof dirt, causing a cloud behind me. I then head towards the gas station. The gas station is deserted, but the payphone is showered in the light from the gas pumps. I call home and explain what happened and why I was running late. My stepdad asked me if a gas station worker could be seen, but I let him know that I couldn't see him behind the counter, that he was probably in the back. I wasn't in trouble, but I was asked to hurry home. So to the two drunk idiots that were messing with me that night, I have no idea what you had planned, but you should really be ashamed of yourselves for trying to pull that on a 16-year-old kid. This happened to me about a week ago. I found a summer job at our local supermarket, and about 2 weeks in, I got asked to work the late night shift, which was 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. I accepted it since I was really in need of money, and I never really sleep early anyways. Everything was fine and dandy until about 3 a.m. when a shirtless, scarred-up guy came in the store. After lingering around in the store for a while, he quickly came up to the counter, making intense eye contact with me. As I was about to ask him if he needed any help, he then whispered, "Hey, don't you dare move." I didn't hear him at first, so I asked him if he could repeat that. At that point, he got agitated and then yelled, "Make another sound or I'll cut you up!" In a swift motion, he vaulted over the counter, going to the alcohol section, trying to grab a bottle of whiskey. Thankfully, the owner had hid a baseball bat under the counter. The moment he turned his back to me, I took the bat and then swung full force at his knee. He winced in pain and tried to get up. I winded my bat yet again, acting like I was going to hit him again, just to see him pull out a homemade shiv of some sort. I let him get up, and at the moment he got up, he swung his shiv right at me, lightly lacerating my wrist. I pushed him back with my bat and he ran for the door and got out. The day after, I had called the cops and showed them the security camera footage, but they haven't contacted me since. I think it's safe to say I won't be working the late night shift again for a long time. I often like to go out running in the summer or really whenever the weather's nice. This happened a week before I was supposed to start high school. I thought about going running that day, but got the idea in the morning that I would run in the evening instead while the sun is still up but isn't as hot as in the day, and there isn't a chance for it to get hotter if I don't manage to get back in time like in the morning. Well, of course, I forget my promise to myself and only remember it at around 9 p.m. Now, it's the end of the summer, so the sun is already setting sooner than I'm used to. But I just tell myself, I'll just get back inside like an hour or so. It'll be fine. I've already been putting off running, so I don't want to put it off again. I should probably mention that I'm a girl, and even though a lot of girls I know change the side of the road they walk on whenever they see a distinctly drunk-looking guy walking, I was always the one calling them pussies and was ready to take on the first rogue who tried to get to me. I also live in a less populated area out of the town where almost everyone knows everyone, so I was feeling extra sure of my safety. What a naive fool I was, I know. So I go out, start my run, and it's fine. It's getting a bit dark, but I can still see the running track, so it's all good. I started to feel a bit off when I see a pair walking in front of me. When I get closer, they turn out to be just teenage guys, and I run past them with no problem. When I finally reach the usual spot in my run where I turn around, a cemetery. Ultra creepy, I know, but it has benches and it's a small graveyard, so I never feel weird taking a break there, and it's already gotten pretty dark. I drink some water from my bottle and just stand under a tree next to the gate and territory of the cemetery. But I don't sit down where I usually do because the bench is next to a fence, and the darkness has finally made me a little weary about being alone and someone jumping on me. It's pretty funny that that's what scared me the most at the time. When I catch my breath, I stay for a few more minutes just listening to the wind. I see a bike drive past the cemetery taking the route that I'll take while running back. I leave my resting place and it's gotten really dark. Dark enough that I could barely see 2 meters in front of me. I start slowly running back. After 15 meters or so, I start hearing voices. A couple of more and I can clearly hear someone talking. My thoughts immediately jump to a conclusion that there are at least 2 people in front of me if I'm hearing a conversation. Now I slow down even more until I get close enough to actually hear what's being said. Keep in mind it's completely dark and this road doesn't even have street lights, so I can't see anything. I get close enough to finally make out the words, and my heart sinks at what I hear. I can't recall the exact words that were being said, but the general idea. The male voice then said, "I see this girl. I could just pull her into the bushes." There were tall bushes lining one side of the running track. As I said, at first my heart stopped, but immediately after I go into fight or flight mode. I can hear my own heart beating in my ears, and I'm full of adrenaline, the bad kind. I know that I can't just stop or he'll know that I heard what he said, so I continue to walk, but thank God that the running track is separated from the road by a small grass field, so I go to the side of the road, making some distance between us. I kept looking at him. Keep in mind, I still don't even know how many people there are, but I see a square of light, presumably a phone, and then I hear him jump on his bicycle and drive off. It turned out he was talking on the phone, but just because he was alone didn't mean I was any less scared of him. I walked on the side of the road for a good few minutes until I'm sure he would be far away from me, and once I get back on the running track, I then sprint home like crazy. All the way back, I was shaking with fear and looking at the bushes and cars that passed me with delirium, squishing my water bottle in my hand ready to smack anyone who came close to me. When I finally reached the first road lights, I really felt like I escaped death. I really got lucky that night. So this first started when I first moved into my new place last summer in 2019. I live with my landlord, her elderly mom, and my friend Daisy. I also started a new job working the night shift at a hotel, so I was up most nights. I'm going to preface the story with some background information that would help make the story make sense. Since my landlord knew her neighbors very well as she lived in this house all her life and there's hardly any street parking, I was able to park my car in the vacant house's driveway, directly parallel across the street from our house. When I park my car, I can see the front of my place with my rearview mirrors. Our house is right in front of a very busy stop sign, so seeing and hearing traffic is something that we all had to get used to. Daisy and I are women and are best friends that met in college. We've known each other for a few years at this point and did everything together. I remember that it was a warm summer Thursday night. Daisy and I love to leave the house past midnight, eat horrible fast food, roll the windows down, and drive along the coast. It was around 1:45 a.m. as I finally pulled up to my parking spot. We sat in my car for a while listening to music and finishing the last bit of our late night munchies. My windows were up by this point, but we could hear a bigger car approaching the stop sign. It sounded like a diesel. Of course, it was a stereotypical white van that prompted me to joke, "Daisy, look at that creepy white van." From my rearview mirror, the next thing we knew, we saw what looked like a thin man pick up his camera from the passenger side and take at least 5 pictures of the front of our house with the flash on. Daisy and I silently looked at each other in horror as the van then sped off. The next day, Daisy and I told our landlord all about the incident, and she told us this wasn't the first time that one of her tenants reported this. Though she brushed it off despite us telling her that anyone taking pictures of her house that late at night did not have good intentions, it really put Daisy and me on edge. Some time had passed as the coronavirus pandemic crept its way into the US towards the end of 2019. I was going to file a police report, as I eventually caught most of the person's license plate after what felt like months of investigating. At the beginning of February 2020, the van stopped coming. This caused me to think that the pandemic may have either gotten the person sick or affected them in some way. Although the person didn't take any more pictures, when the van drove by, it came from the same direction every time at around 1 to 1:30 a.m. It would stop for an eerily long amount of time, then it would speed off out of nowhere, as if the person was racing another car that was never there. I did stop investigating after 2 weeks of nothing. I still get very anxious if I ever hear a loud diesel-like vehicle driving by late at night. I don't know what that person wanted, why they were taking pictures of my landlord's house. Maybe once the shelter in place is lifted in my county, I might investigate again just to ensure that the creep is really gone. We were 16, an age where you feel invincible. It was summer, and school was out, and my friend and I who lived in the same apartment complex decided to go to the mall and kill time, as any other teenager would do. I don't remember much about that day other than our walk home from the mall. It must have been around 9 when we left, since that's the time the mall closes. Our apartment building was 2 miles away from the mall, so of course we walked. It was really hot out, and we both knew that once we got home there would be nothing to do, so we opted to walk home. We both enjoyed the conversation and the passing of time. Our town wasn't exactly dangerous. Yeah, there were some muggings and theft, but it wasn't as bad as some of the other cities in our county, so we walked those 2 miles oblivious to any potential threats. We were a mile in when we had passed an intersection. Shortly thereafter, 3 males walked out of the opposite street and began walking behind us. I didn't think much of it. It's summer. They were young. It's hot. No reason to be suspicious. My friend, however, was unnerved. "Hey, yeah? Those guys are behind us." "Yeah, what about them?" "Well, I'm pretty sure they're following us," my friend said. "What? No, I don't think so. You're just being paranoid." As soon as I said that, one of the men started whistling at us. I turned around. "Hey, what you got in the bag?" We had shopping bags from the mall. "Nothing. Leave us the hell alone," my friend retorted. I remember just being pissed. Why would she respond to them? At this point, I'm nervous as hell. Turns out my friend was right. Call it intuition. We begin walking even faster now that we sense danger, and as we quicken our pace, so do the men. They know we're on to them. We near a plaza with a Del Taco, and as we enter the parking lot, the men disperse. One is directly behind us, and the other two were on our sides. I turn around. They all then whip out freaking baseball bats out of nowhere. At this point, I turn to my friend and we hightail it to Del Taco, not bothering to turn around. Thank God it wasn't too late or they'd be closed and we'd have nowhere to hide. As soon as we enter the Del Taco, we look out the windows and witness all of the men jump into a Cadillac Escalade that was parked. Were they only scaring us? Why the bats? Why the car? What the hell's going on? We just watch as the car drove away. That doesn't quell our fear though. We spend about 10 minutes in the restaurant deciding what to do next. Do I call my dad to pick us up, or do we actually walk the half a mile home? We didn't want to worry our parents, and so we ended up deciding to walk. The whole time we're constantly turning back, anticipating a black Escalade to pop out of nowhere and kidnap us, but luckily it never did. As soon as we got home, we promised ourselves not to tell our parents, as we knew it would hinder us from hanging out again. The moment I walked through the door, I blabbed to my parents. I found out later that my friend did the same. Scariest experience of my young life.